So yesterday I put forth the shocking possibility, the unbelievable possibility, that there could be a war between the United States and Israel. Well, it appears that somebody else, a columnist in Israel, believes the same thing. And of course, yesterday I put forth the reasons. NATO's Article 5, mainly. I'm going to go further into my reasonings of yesterday and why I believe that a war between the U.S. and Israel is now possible, when before October the 7th, I didn't believe it. All right, he says, during college I had an interview for a job with the NSA. I was never really interested in working there as much as curious. With my background in international affairs focused on the Middle East, they seemed interested in me and I was looking for work. And that I taught myself to read Russian was a plus. So it was worth a few meetings. The NSA interviews ended abruptly with me deciding not to show up for an aptitude test because I wasn't really interested and had other opportunities. I wasn't so committed. I was also easily swayed not to pursue this by the owner of the bagel shop I frequented. I remember chatting with her one day and telling her what I was up to. I mentioned the NSA and she politely, firmly, and maternally told me, "That's not a job for a nice Jewish boy." Indeed, in the wake of the arrest of Jonathan Pollard on charges of spying for Israel, I wondered if that was truly a job, much less a career option for me. Would an American Jew be able to risk or to rise in the ranks of one of the United States' leading intelligence agencies without implications of dual loyalty? Indeed, during the second or third interview, albeit without using the words dual or loyalty in the same sentence, the senior NSA officer implied as much in different words. What would you do, he asked, if there were a war between Israel and the United States? Really? So the NSA official asked the question, as if he was expecting it sometime down the line. Now, I understand that he was presenting all possibilities. But remember what I said earlier in this video, that up until October the 7th, I did not believe it was possible. Well, apparently, the folks at the NSA have believed it was possible and plausible for a long time. Why is that? If I can remember, I will address that question. I will continue. Rather than answer his offensive and absurd question. Yes, to a Jew, to an Israeli, it is an absurd question, but to a U.S. government official, it is not. Why? Why? I proceeded to tell him why that would never happen. I believed it then, and I believe it now, he says. Well, pardon me, Mr. Feldstein. I don't believe it's an absurd question anymore. And quite frankly, neither do you. Yet today, the world is a different place. There is no Soviet Union as a polarizing evil empire, and while Russia has not quite filled the shoes of the Soviet Empire, in its place there has been a rising of extreme Islam. There are multiple sources of this competing for hegemony, killing one another, as well as no short of non-Muslim victims they view as infidels. But Iran remains in first place with a wide field of contenders for silver and bronze. I disagree with that, because if Mr. Feldman would read his own scriptures in Ezekiel 38 and 39, Iran might be the tip of the spear, and I'm not even so sure about that anymore. Maybe it's Turkey. And it's written about in Ezekiel, is it 14, 16? One of the later is undoubtedly Turkey. At the time, I had my conversation with the enlightened NSA officer. Turkey was a proud secular Muslim country. Right. Right. Turkey has the distinction of being one of, if not the only Muslim country, not just to have diplomatic relations with Israel, but even warm relations. Well, tell me, Mr. Well, I done forgot what the writer's name is. How warm are those relations now? What a difference a decade makes. Well, I most certainly agree. Under its autocratic ruler Erdogan, Turkey has become a lead detractor of Israel and supporter of terrorism, particularly against Israel. Yes, Mr. Feldman. Exactly. With the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria and consent for Turkey to take over control of Syrian territory to fill the void, there has been significant bipartisan criticism of the Trump administration in the U.S. and the allies around the world. There's a sense that the U.S. has abandoned its allies in the Kurds, as well as empowered and emboldened Turkey as its extremist Islamic worldview and its extremist Islamic worldview and ambitions. These criticisms are legitimate. As relates to Middle Eastern diplomacy in abandoning allies, one might say that Trump has taken a page out of Obama's playbook. Yeah. Where does this leave Israel? With Syria controlled by Iran, Turkey, and Russia, with nobody but themselves to keep one another in check. We have got the whole Gog and Magog apparatus in charge of Syria now. But there's a problem, folks. There's a problem, and he's going to talk about this. While a war with the U.S. is not on the horizon, what would happen if Israel engaged in conflict with Turkey? What if Israel's defensive operations successfully carried out against Syrian and Iranian targets in recent years were to catch Turkey in the crosshairs? See, this is where NATO is screwing up big time. And when you read Ezekiel 38, it says he's going to put hooks in their jaws. What does that mean? That means they didn't intend to initially. That's not how it was at the beginning, but somewhere along the way, if you read it carefully, you'll see. Initially, it was unintentional, but somewhere along the way, a thought comes into his mind. That's what it says. What if successful defensive operations successfully carried out against Syrian and Iranian targets in recent years were to catch Turkey in the crosshairs? Now, folks, just last night, a PMU Iraqi base was blown up. So Iraq is involved too now, you see. It wouldn't matter if this was a direct and deliberate attack against Turkish positions or of Turkish troops just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's hard to imagine Turkey sitting idly by and allowing either of these to pass without a response. As Palestinian, Arab, and other terror groups operate freely out of Turkey, maybe they would unleash these and allow to facilitate an attack on Israel or soft Jewish targets. Maybe Turkey would take the opportunity to hold hostage any among the thousands of Israelis who just pass through on connecting Turkish air flights to and from Israel each week. Or maybe, just maybe, Turkey would respond directly. If either of these were to happen, Israel could be put in a position of deliberately engaging Turkey. With the U.S. withdrawn from Syria, what would its response be? Wait, you ask, why would the U.S. care any more about Turks getting killed by Israeli strikes in Syria any more than Syrians, Iranians, Russians, Kurds, or others? Could the U.S. jump to Turkey's defense? Well, I'm here to tell you today that they will. Before I found out the shenanigans that were going on in Washington, I never would have believed it. But you've got greedy people in Washington. And I talked yesterday about Turkish gold, where it originated from the concentration camps in Germany. When I get done with this, I'm going to go to one or two articles, and you might be able to discern in at least one of them why this gold is so important. Europeans are, as members of NATO, Turkey enjoys the benefits of an understood mutual alliance. I talked about this yesterday. Forget that Turkey today is not the Turkey that joined NATO, and that some Europeans are visibly uncomfortable with Turkey being a part of this alliance, especially as they are now being armed with sophisticated Russian weapons. Would any direct aggression between Israel and Turkey become a lightning rod for international backlash, albeit with a backdrop of hundreds of thousands being slaughtered in Syria? Yes, of course. How do I know? Well, Ezekiel 38 and 39 says so. Would an Israeli strike on Turkey trigger the U.S. or other NATO members to denounce or directly engage Israel? Despite my NSA officers positing the notion, albeit as a way to challenge my loyalty as an American, is there likely to be a war between Israel and the U.S. this generation over Turkey, or any other reason any more than the last generation? He says no. I beg to differ. And there's one reason, well, actually there's more than one reason, but there's actually one obvious reason that's plain as the nose on your face, and that is the NATO alliance, Article 5. Maybe with the Turkey invading Syria as a land grab to butcher the Kurds, this will be a catalyst for its removal from NATO. Don't think so. I'll go to an article to prove that. But until that point, what's happened in Syria recently establishes dangerous precedents and has been a game changer and emboldened a NATO member whose interests are directly in contradiction with NATO. All right. He says he prays for the Kurds and prays that I am not proven wrong in my answer to my enlightened NSA officer, albeit 3 decades later. All right. Which one should I do first? I'm going to do the gold one, but I'm afraid that if I don't do this one first, that I will forget it. So this one is NATO Stoltenberg's defends approach to Turkey-Syria offensive. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg on Monday defended his stance on Turkey's military operation against Kurdish militants in northeastern Syria, saying that the military alliance should not use its unity in the fight against Islamic State. Well, what's he talking about here? Well, what's that all about? Well, when you continue to read further, you'll see exactly what he's talking about. Splits in the military alliance have emerged after NATO member Turkey began its offensive in Syria last week, with the EU governments threatening sanctions against Ankara. Stoltenberg visited Istanbul on Friday. We must not put in jeopardy the gains we have made against our common enemy, Stoltenberg said at a session at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly in London. Well, who's he speaking to? He's speaking to the Europeans at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly in London. In answer to questions from French and Italian delegates who had challenged what they described as his conciliatory approach to Turkey. He's defending Turkey. Yes, folks. Why is that? Because NATO cannot afford to lose Turkey for many, many reasons. I said yesterday they will not kick Turkey out of NATO. They won't do it. Turkey is important for NATO. We risk undermining the unity we need to fight against Islamic State. Right. When Turkey is letting them loose by the thousands daily. And furthermore, Donald Trump is now blaming the Kurds for turning ISIS loose. Unbelievable stuff here, folks. Please bear with me. I will show you these articles. All right, so that's the end of this particular one. Then, is it this one? All right. Trump. This is posted this morning. Kurdish-led forces may intentionally be releasing Islamic State militants. There has already been proof. What Turkey was doing was they were bombing the doors off the jails that the Kurds were holding ISIS in so that they could be released. That was all over Twitter yesterday. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that Kurdish-led forces in northeast Syria may be releasing captive Islamic State militants to lure U.S. troops back to the area, adding that they could be easily recaptured. The Turkish onslaught in northern Syria has raised concerns that Islamic State militants and their families held by the Kurdish-led forces long allied with Washington may escape and revive the group. Scores have been said to have escaped already. And he's implying that the Kurds are releasing them to bring the United States back. You see what's going on here, folks? Defending Turkey, defending Turkey. The U.S. government is defending Turkey. Jens Stoltenberg, the Secretary General of NATO, is defending Turkey. Why? Why is this happening? All right, I don't think I need this one anymore. Make sure that I wanted to also show this particular map. This is back in October the 7th. The red is where the Turkish-backed Syrian rebels were. And this line between the green and the blue is essentially the Euphrates River. And of course, Turkey is coming from this area, generally speaking, and rolling on into the northern part here. All right. So there's that particular picture. If you want to look at it, I'll get rid of it. Let's see what this says. Just another side note here. Kremlin's, this is a Detka file. Kremlin spokesman refuses to consider a Russian-Turkish clash in Syria. Of course not. We wouldn't even think about that scenario, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters on Monday when he asked if Moscow was worried about being sucked into a conflict with Turkish forces because it's backing of the Syrian army. He said Moscow was in regular contact with Ankara, including on the military level, etc. Let's see here. Was it this one? All right. I want to hold on to this one until I get done with this one at Zero Hedge. All right. Gold. Everybody's talking about gold, but the unfortunate problem here is when all this stuff breaks down, it is not going to be gold. You can't eat gold, folks. But anyway, people are being led to believe that that will be the new currency. I completely disagree. It is my opinion that all the world's gold will be transported by force to Jerusalem during and after the day of Yehovah's wrath. Anyway, central bank issues stunning warning. If the entire system collapses, gold will be needed to start over. That's code, folks. That is code for they believe that fiat paper currency is going to collapse. It is not just tinfoil blogs who for the past 11 years have been warning that a monetary reset is inevitable and that the only viable fallback option once trust and faith in fiat is lost is a gold standard, something of which even Mark Carney recently hinted at. Central banks are joining the doom parade now too. An article published by Der Nederlandsche Bank, or the Dutch Central Bank, published an article, has shocked many with its claims that if the system collapses, the gold stock can serve as a basis to build it up again. Gold bolsters confidence in the stability of central bank's balance sheet and creates a sense of security. And you can read the rest of this. You know how to find it. This is not hard to understand, the first few sentences, okay? And of course, you see, you got to understand that the world leaders, they think about their own survival first before they think about yours. And Turkey has almost all of the gold stolen by the Nazis from the Jews they held in concentration camps. And I pointed out yesterday, people in Washington are standing in line trying to figure out a way to either get some of that gold or to make financial gains because they know people who own the gold, or who currently hold the gold, I should say. Have you made the connections yet? Have you connected the dots yet? Now, why would fiat currency start collapsing? What's going on here? Well, you now have Russia, China, and Iran now not using the dollar anymore to make transactions, even in Europe. for gold, for oil. They're using whatever they can use, including European currency. That's what's propped the dollar up, or that's what's kept the dollar viable. So you even have the Dutch Central Bank admitting that there's probably going to be a monetary reset. All right, there's that. And now let's look at this. So if you wonder why the Kurds are suddenly being blamed for everything, it is because Washington has a new bribery partner. During the Obama administration, the bribery partner was Iran. Now the bribery partner is Turkey. Christian leadership, huh? All right. So this particular article is very, very interesting, folks. I need to move this over so that it can be seen better. Because Jonathan Swan, he's insinuating that Turkey was only bluffing. But now, their bluff has been called. President Trump has been calling Turkish President Erdogan's bluff for more than 2 years. And some senior administration officials thought Erdogan would never actually go through with his long-threatened Syrian invasion, according to 6 sources with direct knowledge of the situation. The big picture: Trump would tell Erdogan if he wanted to invade Syria, he would have to own whatever mess ensued. According to these sources, Erdogan would have to take care of ISIS and manage international condemnation, trouble from Capitol Hill, and the quagmire of the Kurds. And when Trump put it in such stark terms to Erdogan, the Turkish leader would demur. Until last Sunday, that is, when he told Trump he was moving ahead with the invasion of northern Syria. This time, Erdogan called Trump's bluff. A little game of chicken going on here. Having waited for international forces to wipe out the ISIS caliphate, Erdogan's decision, which the White House cleared the way for on its Sunday night announcement, alienated and blindsided key allies, including Republican lawmakers and the Christian right, and has plunged the Middle East and Trump's political standing in Washington into crisis. Sources in Turkey have indicated that while Erdogan was talking big, he thought Trump would restrain him. A U.S. official familiar with the details told Axios' Margaret Talev. For example, Erdogan did not expect or want a 30-kilometer deep, 18-mile buffer. That was assumed to be negotiation aimed at getting something smaller. Well, I don't know if that's true or not. What if it was? What if it is? When I finish this, I will give you my opinion here. Now Erdogan may be in over his head, facing global condemnation and sanctions, but he got so far extended politically inside Turkey that he has little choice but to go forward, the official said. Behind the scenes and phone calls and in-person meetings dating back to 2017, Trump has been effectively calling Erdogan's bluff, according to sources who had been in the room with the 2 leaders and had access to their phone calls. On one 2017 phone call, Erdogan was complaining to Trump about the Kurdish threat on his border and told Trump he wanted to move in and take care of the Kurdish threat, per a source with direct knowledge of the call. The source paraphrased their recollection of what Trump said on the call. It was pretty blustery. Trump was like, "I don't want to be there in the first place, But you know our guys are there. They don't take shit. We're there. Maybe I don't want to be there. But if you do a border crossing and come into conflict with our guys, they are way better equipped, and you don't want to do that. Trump's message, the source said, was don't mess with the U.S. military. But after conveying that threat, Trump signaled he wasn't going to keep his troops in Syria for long and was not going to be hanging around to protect the Kurds against Turks, the source added. You know, he could have told the Kurds this back then, to give them an opportunity to regroup, but he did not. Instead, he treats them like enemies now. Let's see. The source added, okay, so Trump said something to the effect, but you know I don't want to be there. We're there to defeat ISIS. My people tell me we are winning, so hang tight. But you don't want to get into conflict with my guys, the source recalled. Another former senior administration official who was with Erdogan and Trump when Erdogan visited the White House in 2017 said Trump called the Turkish leader's bluff then too. Trump basically said, look, if you want it, you own it. But don't come looking to me for help. You can take it. It's yours. Yes, Donald Trump gave him the go-ahead, the former official recalled in that 2017 conversation about Turkish intent to cross the border into Syria. But that was 2 years ago. So what was going on? Well, maybe this guy is right. Maybe Erdogan forced himself into a corner. We have got a scenario here where a whole bunch of different things are coming together. Entrapping the entire world. If you, folks, let's raise our IQ level some here. Think about everything that was just mentioned and what was mentioned yesterday. Russia does not want war with Turkey, can't afford it. NATO does not want to split from Turkey, can't afford it. Donald Trump has been talking about leaving Syria ever since before he was elected. He can't back down now. Turkey, the Turkish president, has been talking his crazy Islamic anti-Kurd screeds, saying he was going to do this and going to do that and going to do this, and now the door was opened. And according to this article, he never really intended to go 30 or 35 miles. I kind of don't agree with that, but what I'm saying is, folks, there's a whole lot of different things are coming together to trap the world. Trap. It's a trap. The whole world is in a trap. Think about it. A trap has been laid for the entire world. Well, that's biblical. That's prophetic. Let's not forget the other part where you have officials in Washington and probably in Europe too, although it looks like more so in Washington, that are looking at Turkish ill-gotten gold because of fear of the collapse of fiat currency. And as I said, you cannot eat gold. And furthermore, all that gold is going to be taken to Israel by force. So don't put your stock in gold, folks. Don't do it. You need food and water to survive. The trap. You've just had the greatest trap of all time illustrated before you. As I have talked about over the past year or two, Trump's Middle East peace plan of the century, and then there was Putin's peace plan of the century. Look at this. So I don't know what happened to it, but one of the Israeli articles had posted Putin's peace plan of the century. But anyway, then there was Rouhani's peace plan that I pointed out. Just a couple of days ago. All right, so this is on NPR. Iran's Rouhani touts Gulf peace plan. See? This was on September the 25th, saying it would start with U.S. troops leaving. Of course, he was being sarcastic, but they're talking peace, are they not? And then, of course, you have Turkey's peace spring. Turkey Operation Peace Spring. That is what this offensive is called. So they're saying peace. That's what they're doing. So now that we have context, let's go back to 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 3 or 5 verse 1 through 3. For when they shall say, peace and safety, not when he shall say, peace and safety, no, when they shall say, this is plural. Then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a woman, and they shall not escape. 5 verse 3. But you, brethren, are not in darkness, so that that day should overtake you as a thief. Why? Because you should be watching. If you are the children of the light, you should be watching. What does it say here? You are children of the light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch. If you're watching, you will not be taken unawares. In other words, and this is one of many, the Messiah said the same thing. If you are watching, you will not be caught unawares. You will know it's coming. Yesterday, I pointed out in, what is it? Revelation 14, is it? 13? (16) verse 12. Got to use Strong's Concordance. And the sixth angel poured out his bowl or vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof dried up or wasted away. Man, I might have to go and go to Google. Was it Google Earth? Maybe I can find it. That the way of the king or ruler of Anatolia is Turkey, might be prepared. Now the way is a way or a road. All right, look, see. It doesn't say roads, plural. It says a way, a road, a journey, or a journey, or a path. All right. But it does appear, you know, it's road, streets, way, and all that. Okay, so let's then go to, let's see, Google Earth. I did this yesterday. I hope I can do it again. I don't want to launch in Chrome. See if I can do, okay. I'm trying to get this thing to, all right. What's it going to do? It's loading. I should have had it ready, but I wasn't thinking about doing it at the time. It's been taking a long time. Well, I don't know if it's going to work. Just sitting there now. Maybe I'll just do Google Maps. Marvelous. I'm not getting what I want here. Why is this thing doing this to me? Just sitting there. Won't do anything. Now I'll get rid of that. We'll just then go Jarblus, Syria. See if all right. Here we go. See if we can find, so this is the Turkish border right here, right? Now, why has the Euphrates River dried up in some places? Well, I'll show you why. Just take a look at this, for example. Up in Turkey or up in Anatolia, what do you see? All right, let's get real close here. You see a dam right here. And what else do you see? You see a road going across the Euphrates River. What does it say here? A way, a road, a journey, or a path. So, the Euphrates River was drying up so that a road or a path could be made over the Euphrates River. All right, fair enough, is it not? We'll look at it a little bit more. All right. There's another highway across this right here. So there's two roads Turkey has, right? So Turkey has two roads that go across here. All right. So what they can do is they can bring their troops, cross the Euphrates River on the other side and come down here, which is where they want to be, on the eastern side of the Euphrates River in Turkey, in this area right here. Well, that is, and of course Syria also has roads. One right here, one right there. And you see the dam there. And then Syria has their own dam, right? Let's see here. They have a couple of dams, okay? But in these areas where roads are crossing, it's on the narrow side. Just to get context. That the way of the king of Anatolia might be, or the road of the king of Anatolia might be prepared. So all this stuff has been going on over the past, I don't know, 50 years? Damming and drying up of the Euphrates River. All right, and then of course, once again, we go back to Revelation 19, I mean, not 19, 9, 9:14, what does it say? And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar which is before Yehovah, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates, or bound on the great river Euphrates. And the four angels were loosed, and they were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the third part of men. This is a war, folks, but this is not just any war. It appears, and I will go and look up just to make sure that I do this, and I forgot to do it the other day, mobile ICBM missile launchers. All right. Let's see if I can get more images here. And of course, you can see in these images, the tail, as John would say, is set down on top of here. And of course, when the missile is raised, all right, see if I can get some with the missile raised. Well, like this one, for example. All right. Let's go to, So just take a look at this picture carefully, folks. Intercontinental ballistic missile launcher, and it's mobile. All right. So let's go to Revelation 9. And I saw the cavalry in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses, or the brimstone, would be flashy. Flashy. Now, this one right here doesn't look very flashy, does it? But anyway, I'll continue. And the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of the mouth issued fire and smoke and brimstone. And by these were the third part of men killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone. The word brimstone originated from the word flash of the gods. That's what it means in Greek, which issued out of their mouths. Did the fire come out of the mouth or come from the tail? Well, he goes on to describe here, for the power is in their mouth and in their tails. And then he describes, for their tails were like unto serpents, and had heads on them which they do hurt. So heads on the tails of the serpents, like a serpent. Well, this does indeed have a tail sort of like a serpent, does it not? So the head of the ICBM missile launcher, let's have a look at it. Does it look like a lion? Now, if I can just find... in some cases, you can make the case. This one right here, Jacinth. What color is Jacinth? Okay, so you have all these different colors. All right, so let's look at see the head of this thing, right? This one right here. All right, that looks a bit like a lion. Wide head, a wide head. Because horses don't have wide heads; they have a narrow head. You see. All right, Jacinth. What does Jacinth look like? Interesting. All right. Well, the North Korean one has a red look to it. That's interesting. So, let's go back to Strong's Concordance. Where is this at? Hyacinth. Wait a minute. Hyacinth. Hyacinth. Oh, all kinds of different colors, including white. Well, that's interesting. Oh. So folks, you see how you've got to be careful. Keep an open mind. Let's see here. What was it? Oh, they have fiery breastplates. Fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these, so bottom line is, it starts in the Euphrates. It goes on for a year, a month, a day, and an hour, and it kills a third part of men. All right. This one right here, it does have a reddish tint to it, doesn't it? See that? I wonder what I wonder what a Russian ICBM. Well, there's plenty of red on that one. That's also very interesting. I want to see one that's raised up. See, folks, we've got to do our due diligence when we study this. You're showing a North Korea one again. And, you know, could it be what John had seen was one being launched? Could it be that? It's kind of hard to know, isn't it? Kind of hard to know. See if yep. Where is this? Oh. All right. Now, I may have spent enough time on that. Everybody needs to do their due diligence. Apparently, it's red. But see, is it red because of the missile launch? Because it would turn red from a missile launch, or the color of red would show up on it, as we saw in the picture. Breastplates of fire. Oh, so of course. Of course. See, now we begin to see here. Of course, of course, of course. I think I'm at the right one. Folks, please pardon me while I do this. I need to find one being launched at night. I don't know if ICBM leaving a launcher tube. All right, okay, this might work. So let's look at this ICBM missile being launched, right? See, sometimes you just got to take what is written at face value. What do you see? You see a glowing red right here, like jacinth, hyacinth, whatever you want to call it, right? And you see white as well. Do you see purple? Well, in some cases you probably would. So we go to Revelation 9, and what is he describing? It says, breastplates of fire. Okay, what do you see here? Fire. All right, what is a breastplate? All right, that is the upper. It is the upper part of a man's medieval what do you call that? Device to protect it from injury. So it's the upper part, right? Upper part of his armor. So what do we have here? We have breastplate of fire. This is the armor that's on this particular ICBM. It looks like a breastplate of fire when it's taking off. You got to remember, John can only describe what he is seeing. And when it says, out of the mouth issued fire and smoke and brimstone, now it could be directed from the mouth or it could be from the launch tubes. You see? So, I'm getting sidetracked here. What I'm saying is, there is a trap being laid for the world right now. And the NATO nations cannot afford to abandon or to kick Turkey out of NATO. Revelation 16 says Anatolia, or implies Anatolia, is going to start this war on the Euphrates. Revelation 9 says this war on the Euphrates is going to cause the death of a third of man within a day, a month, an hour, and a year. Just say 366 days, I would say. No, 396 days. Somewhere around there. A little over a year. A conventional war would take longer than that. History proves that. Even in World War II. When there were nukes available, still took longer than that. This one is going to be relatively short. So, here's the thing. Now, your food supply, gold, whatever, is not going to save you. Only Yehovah can save you. Now, I would say to the Israelis right now to start saying, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yehovah. I would say to all, especially during this Sukkot season. You might ask, well, why am I not keeping Sukkot? Why am I not keeping the Feast of Tabernacles? Because I'm too far away from Jerusalem. The only place where Yehovah has ever chosen was Jerusalem. It says, in a place where he shall choose. I hope to do it one day. I hope to be one day in Jerusalem. You see. All right. I'm getting beside the point here. Okay, so let's go look again at this particular scripture. Is it Matthew 25? In the kingdom of heaven shall be, verse 1, shall be like unto 10 virgins which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels along with their lamps. With their vessels along with their lamps. They were anticipating something. They were all anticipating the bridegroom to come. But the 5 wise were making sure they had everything ready. All right? While the bridegroom waited, they all slumbered and slept, all 10. And at midnight, or in the midst, in the middle, there was a cry made, and an outcry made. An outcry happened. And the cry was, look, behold, the bridegroom comes. Go you out to meet him. And then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered and saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go you rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. Well, who are they that sell and buy for themselves? That's obviously the world. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were not prepared. It says ready, but the word is he het oimus in Greek, and it means prepared. They were not prepared. Prepared for what? And they that were prepared went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut, and afterward also, and afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Master, Master, open unto us. And he answered them and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch. Watch. Because you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man comes. But see, if you are watching, you eventually will. If you are watching, you need to be prepared. So, the question is then, check this out. This is a little different theory of mine. Now, if the Messiah comes at the end of the sixth vial, which he says so, and if the sixth trumpet is similar to the sixth vial, which it appears to be, both concerning the Euphrates River, and when you look at the sixth seal, you see that at the end of the sixth seal comes Yehovah and the Lamb. They all are talking about hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne. That's Yehovah. And from the wrath of the Lamb. Well, if the Lamb is still gone, how could the wrath of the Lamb be here? All right. So we're talking about a number of days. An hour and a day and a month and a year for to slay the third part of men. Well, if the slaying of the third part of men is going on for a month, a day, and a year, an hour, how much food do you need and water do you need to stockpile to prepare for that occasion? Ever thought about that? Once again, I say that food, water cannot save you. But the Messiah said, he implied you need to be prepared. If you are watching, these things start to take place, and you know the scripture where it says an hour, a day, a month, and a year for to slay the third part of men, you know that catastrophe is going to take place on the earth. Well, shouldn't you have enough food and water and whatever? Shouldn't you be prepared? What were the 5 foolish virgins doing when the 5 wise went in to the bridegroom, to the wedding? They were out in the world looking for something, looking for oil, looking for supplies, looking for preparation, looking for oil. Are you dependent on this world for your sustenance? Is the grocery store going to save you? Ever thought about that? If something like this is going to happen, shouldn't you consider everything? Well, the 5 wise considered the oil, did they not? Why? Because they wanted to be ready. Maybe it was because they knew something was up. They knew something was going to happen. I've over and over and over, I have said that civilization is going to come crashing down to the ground. And when it does, there's not going to be anything to eat. Once again, to the politicians in Washington, D.C., you cannot eat gold. And that gold is going to be taken. All that gold that was stolen from the Jews in concentration camps, that's all going to be taken from Turkey and anywhere else it might be located by force. It's going to be taken. Stay away from that gold. It's not yours. Stay away from people who peddle that gold. It doesn't belong to them either, Mr. Giuliani. Maybe it's time to think about how much water you need to stockpile for a year, a month, a day, and an hour. Or maybe it's time to think about how much rice and beans you might need to stockpile, because you might be forced to stay in your house for a little while. Maybe. I think I'm done with this for today. Oh yes. So, just to get you the hour of the day and the month and the year for the slave third part of men, then we'll go to Revelation 16 real quick. I think it was 16. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof wasted away or was dried up, so that the road of the king of Anatolia might be prepared. And we see on the Google Maps that roads are indeed prepared across the Euphrates River. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. And they are the spirit of devils, working wonders, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and the whole world, not part of the world, not just Europe, but the whole world, which means that the United States is going to be involved in it too, to gather them to battle of that great day of Yehovah Almighty. And then he says as a side note, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that is watching and keeps his garments. Now that's literally and figuratively. Both. No, you don't want to be caught naked answering the door when the angels come. But the other thing is, you don't want to be caught naked and without victuals, supplies, whatever, when these things come. It's figurative and literal. Lest you walk naked and they see his shame, and he gathered them to a place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon. Now it's obvious, folks. It's obvious that he comes on the tail end of the 6th bowl of wrath. Because in the 6th bowl of wrath is also the same as a 6th trumpet. And when the 7th trumpet sounds, the angels, that's when they're going to gather together the elect from the 4 winds, north, south, east, and west. So it looks like, I mean, if you're not prepared, Matthew 25 verse 1 says they're not going to be ready. They're not going to be there. But if you are prepared for whatever, because it's going to be bad times, try to prepare yourself whatever way you can and your loved ones. It's because you're watching, and you will be ready. So watch, prepare yourselves for a terrible, terrible time, and be ready. It's just that simple.